It's Wacky World. Yeah, so that's the intro. Alright, this will be so, yeah, just kind of follow you. Yeah, like that's a really good tempo. Just a yep. And just like staying on this for a really long time. I was delighted with how the first episode had gone, and yet I knew I couldn't rest on my laurels. I had to continue to find interesting people. In fact, I met someone this week who knew Ra. That's right, Ra Uru Hu.
So I'm here with Lisa, who knew Ra Uru Hu. What was he like?
He was spacey, etheric, he was kind of, heady guy. I met him at the flea market in Santa Fe. Gosh, when I first moved here, right before I moved here. So that was 1995, 96. And he was in the Tasuki flea market, which was a very hip flea market back in the day. Everybody was there. A lot of Ally McGraw and Shirley MacLaine used to come there. Diane Keaton, a lot of groovy people. And he would just talk about human design. And it was so like, you know, it was complicated and people would be really, interested, and then it would get complex and he would try to explain it. And so I was actually good at communicating what he was trying to say in, a little user friendly because he was kind of heady, you know. And anyway, he was very kind. I remember his generosity of heart. He was very kind. He really wanted to get this into the world.
And
I remember feeling that passion, and that he was still sort of developing his way with that. So I used to do readings for people out there, and then I went to Taos once and met with him. We went to a hotel and met a Greek guy that owned a hotel there. That's very eccentric, Sachi, because I had a cousin that knew them. I met with her, and we went up, and then she met her friends, and then I hung out with Ra for an hour, and I met him before that, actually, when I went to Taos with a friend who was doing Earthships, Michael, that was starting the Earthship community out there many, many years ago. That was actually long before I moved to Santa Fe. And I met him then, and he was very soft spoken and didn't communicate a lot. And then later at the flea market, when I saw him, he was focused.
did he have a booth at the
He
flea
did
market?
CDs and all this stuff,
Just walking
you
by
know,
and seeing Ra
CDs.
sitting there at the booth with the
It
CDs.
was
That's
strange.
wonderful. Yeah.
And I
He's
remember
dressed in
thinking,
black, right?
what were you doing here? Like, what are you doing here? But it was like he was
Yeah.
exploring how it was received. And so if I was there with an artist or with a friend or visiting or with somebody shopping, I would go over and kind of hang out nearby and, you know, translate a little because he was heady at that time,
Yeah.
kind of like Aspergery heady kind of guy,
Sure.
really. He
That
had a
was kind of
hat
his
on. I
thing.
remember he had a hat on often at the flea market that was like a
Yeah.
little, you know, it was a small, like a beanie hat. It was really small. And I thought
Yeah.
it was his thing. But I remember the way he connected when he looked at me. He was very curious and very open to hear what I would say. And so he's a really good listener. He was really, really good listener.
Hmm.
At that period, I remember him catching every detail. And I would think that he wasn't paying much attention and he would catch every detail. And I remember when he tried to explain a little bit about human design, I said, it's hard to sell. It's really complex.
Yeah.
It's not a lightweight, experience here. I saw him at the flea market. He wasn't there all the time, but he was there every so often. And I remember telling people, just go and be receptive because he does know a lot. He's really, really, there's a lot going on. He was so heady. I remember thinking, God, the intelligence behind this is just, he had a gift, but I felt that there was a struggle to communicate it to the world and to get it out in a way that was palatable and easy for people to get in. And I remember talking to him about that, and he was very pensive listening. He would cross his arms and say, But then, when I saw him in Taos, I realized kind of he was back in the Taos vibe. It was very different.
Sure.
He was up there. There was a guy named, well, his name was Bob, but he went by Bob. Very clever. He was from LA, and he was there, and a guy named Don White in Santa Fe which I don't know if he's still here. I think he maybe was working on the board for Site Santa Fe for a while. And they knew him. And there was a intentional community in Taos that we went out to visit. And we went into town and met Ra. And we went to this hotel. Ra wasn't really into their group, but the other people he knew. And anyway, it was really sweet of him to include me. We went out to the land, and they had a grandfather from the Taos Pueblo was there, and an elder, and he really talked a lot about pre-casino at that time and talking about what's happening. And so it was really interesting. I was up for maybe 5 or 7 days, and then he said, you would like Taos. You'd be peaceful here. He didn't really say why or what he thought, but he said, you might like it up here. And then years later, many years later, I had both my children in Taos. I liked him. I mean, I have all of the stuff that he gave me a whole bunch of stuff, and I have it all in this precious bag that he gave me that I was going to always get to the meat of it. And, I'm sorry I didn't get to do it with him.
Thank you for that, Lisa Powers. And now let's see what Johnny Cruz is up to.
This is so hard. How do you fucking do this? Woo! Oh
No, I can't do that. That's a good one.
Give me a wacky. Give me a wacky world. I gave you a wacky world.
I think people should try and figure out their own lives and not bother with mine, or yours, or anyone else's. Our only mission here on this stupid goddamn forsaken planet is to try and realize who we are, where we came from. That's really all we have to do. That's it. We're not gonna get anywhere just talking shit for hours about others. That won't help us. We have to explore our souls, I guess.
Well, my time went so quickly. I went lickety-splitly out to my old 55 as I drove away slowly, feeling so holy. God knows I was feeling alive. And now the sun's coming up. I'm riding with Lady Luck, freeway cars and trucks, stars beginning.